Hi, and welcome back to Purple Color Life. I've got the F150 Lighting here with some really disappointing news. I got a phone call today that kind of ruined my day with a brand new truck. Let's talk about it. If you're new to the channel, this is my 2023 Ford F150 Lighting Lariat Extended Range. I've owned this now for only a couple months. The previous owner was the original owner and he owned it for just less than a year. So we are now at actually 1 year and 1 month of service in this truck. I took it for Pennsylvania inspection today and I got some bad news. It will not pass Pennsylvania inspection with 17,000 miles on it. Now, we've owned this Lightning for only a few months now, but there are several things we're really impressed with. There's a couple things I'm not in love with, and we'll talk about those in this video. And then this phone call today was totally unexpected. Now, I've bought trucks out of state several times in the past. Our F350 diesel that we owned for 17 years, we bought in Maryland. Our F350 Godzilla that we own right now, we bought in Maryland. So I bought trucks out of state in Maryland. I bought trucks out of state in Ohio. I've bought cars in Michigan. So I know that, our Pennsylvania law is that once you bring a car in from out of state, one of the first things you have to do after you get it registered and insured is get it Pennsylvania state inspected. Now, our Pennsylvania state inspections happen every year. They go through a wide variety of checklists to make sure this vehicle is safe to be on the road. Again, safe to be on the road. This is basically a brand new truck, 1 year of use, 16,900 and some miles when I took it to the dealership yesterday. So there's my brand new inspection sticker. I did pay what it cost to get it to pass the inspection, and what it cost was $408. Let's talk about what was wrong with this truck that made me spend $408 to get it Pennsylvania inspected. When we took the truck to the dealership last night, I was joking with Jennifer and I was like, look at all the money we're saving on this Pennsylvania inspection. Our inspection costs about $40. I figured we'd come out with a $40 charge, and I was not worried about that. And I was joking with Jennifer. I'm like, look, no oil change while it's there. That's going to save us money. I can rotate the tires myself. That's going to save us money. There's really nothing they had to do to this other than make sure that going through that Pennsylvania checklist, everything passed the checklist for Pennsylvania inspection. And I mentioned in a previous video with the Chevy Volt that there is sometimes an issue with an EV after many miles of, driving it here on Pennsylvania roads. But definitely it never even crossed my mind that with just under 17,000 miles, I would have to replace the rear brakes on my F150 Lightning. I mentioned in our 10 years with the Chevy Volt video that I did about what it's like to own an EV for 10 years, that the Volt has basically cost us very, very little maintenance. But one of the things that has cost us a few times is rotors on the car. Because what happens is when you slow down, you regenerate electricity, and you're not actually using the brake pads and calipers to squeeze against the rotors to stop your vehicle. And in Pennsylvania, what that means with our sometimes salt on the roads in the wintertime and rainy weather, that sometimes without any activity, the rotors can actually rust over. They can create little grooves in them and bumps. Back in the day, you would take rotors off and refinish them or resurface them and then put them back on. Today, people don't really do that. If the rotors start to get rusted over, you have to replace them. But I never in my wildest dreams imagined that under 17,000 miles, these wheels would come off, these rotors would be rusted to the point where they had to be replaced to pass our state inspection. That to me is just mind-boggling. So you can see inside there, brand new rotors. They actually did not replace the pads because they said the pads had little to no wear. That's not a surprise to me at all because I typically drive in one pedal drive mode, and most of the time when I'm driving, I never even have to touch the brake pedal. I have learned when to let off the accelerator so that the truck slows down in time for an intersection or a stoplight. So yes, I am partly to blame for the fact that my calipers have never squeezed the pads against the rotors, and over time they rusted. My lesson is that once in a while, I probably either need to take it out of one pedal drive mode, drive and actually brake. And typically when I'm braking, I want to see that 100% brake efficiency rating on my dash. I'm really proud of myself for regenerating all that energy. But evidently sometimes I need to see like 50%. I need to hit those brakes a little bit harder, squeeze those calipers, rub those rotors, and keep them from rusting, because it would be ridiculous in saving all this money on oil changes, saving money on gasoline, to have to spend $400 a year on rotors because I haven't used the brakes. Now on the Volt, we have replaced the rotors, I think twice, in 180,000 miles. And we got that same comment, like, well, your rotors aren't really worn down, your brake pads aren't really worn down, they're just rusted from not using them enough. So I figured maybe that would happen to the truck, eventually, but at 17,000 miles, never even crossed my mind. So here's the front of the truck. Looking at the front rotors, you can see they're kind of shiny. A little bit of rust like up in, but no rust on the braking surface. And obviously our rear rotors on this side also brand new. So those of you who also have a Lightning, wondering if you can leave a comment down below. Have you had this same issue where because of one pedal drive mode and regenerating, you had to replace the rotors because they got rusted over? Love to see those comments down below and see if I'm the only one and it's only because I'm in Pennsylvania, or what the case is. Also wondering if maybe I should not have taken this to the Ford dealership to get inspected. Maybe another mechanic might have just said, hey, there's a tiny bit of surface rust on these rotors. Drive it down the road for 20 miles, use the brakes a lot, bring it back. The rotors should be polished off and clean just from you braking, and then we won't have to spend $400 on new rotors. But obviously the dealership and the service department can't pass this if it legally doesn't pass a Pennsylvania inspection. If Pennsylvania's rule is that you can't have rust on the rotor, then we had rust on the rotor evidently. The other thing I probably should have done was ask for the rotors, or ask to see the rotors when I picked up the truck, just to verify and see kind of what condition they were in. That might have led me to know, like, oh yeah, those were seriously rusted over, probably from a year of not really applying the rear brakes. You guys probably know that when you slow down in any vehicle, the front brakes typically apply harder and quicker than the rears. So even in situations where maybe I have touched the brake pedal a little bit, it's probably just barely applying the front brakes and not putting much squeeze on those back rotors and brake pads. I had mentioned that there were a couple other minor frustrations with the Lightning that we've learned over time. Again, lots of things we love about it, but there's kind of some quirky things that we've noticed. Let me show you one of them. Okay, so I've never had a self-opening and closing tailgate. It is pretty cool, as is the self-opening and closing frunk. But there are a couple of things I've noticed about this tailgate. First of all, when you first hit the button and it drops down, that first section of drop is pretty fast. So make sure you're standing away a little bit before it happens. The second thing is, and this seems to happen about 90% of the time or more, if I use the lift it partway up system, it starts to go back up, touches, and works perfectly, of course. Let me show you what typically happens. So typically, that's what happens. It goes up like 99% of the way, beeps a couple times and opens back up. And that gets super frustrating because I want it to do it itself. I can, of course, hold it and force it, and that time it worked perfectly again. So there you go. 66.6% of the time it works perfectly on video, but 90-some% of the time when it's not on video, it does not go all the way and latch. So what I find myself doing in most cases is once it started going up, I keep a finger on it, and then when it gets close, I push it. But see, there again, it didn't go that time. So now we're at 50% of the time on video. And I took a look here to see, like, is it binding up somewhere? And there's nothing here that binds. I took a look over here. I believe this is the side that actually lifts it with a motor, and I think that's what this bracket on the tailgate is for. Those of you who know for sure, definitely leave a comment down below if I'm right about how that works. But I think this portion holds onto the tailgate and tips the whole thing up just from this right-hand side. For a while, I thought maybe these cables were getting stuck or hitting here on this section of the tailgate, but that's not the case. For a while, I thought, okay, maybe it's coming up here and hitting the gasket on my tonneau cover, and the tonneau cover is just tight enough that it's keeping it from closing. But even with the tonneau cover opened up, so we will slide this forward a little bit and see if it does the same thing. Of course, you take it to the dealership or record it on video and it works just fine. Okay, the second minor frustration with the Lightning. And again, leave a comment, those of you who have any F150, if it does the same thing. This center console, I like the storage space, but this console lid does not stay up by itself at all, not even temporarily, not even for 1 second. As soon as you let go of it, it's falling down, and it's falling down pretty good. I would think that there should be a spring or something that either holds it up or at least kind of helps you hold it up, because if you open that up and you're trying to dig down in here for something, it's constantly closing on top of your arm, or if you're leaned in, it's kind of hitting you in the shoulder. Those of you with F150s, is this a common and known problem? Okay, the third thing. We'll have to start the truck up here. Put this section of roof back. The other thing that I've noticed happens sometimes is this gasket for the sunroof to open sometimes comes off of its little track, and then I'll hear it when I'm closing the window. It kind of gets caught. Now it's working fine there, and it's working fine there, but I make a point of pushing that rubber piece to make sure it's on the gasket so that it doesn't get caught, because otherwise the piece kind of sticks out and either the window catches on it or the shade catches on it when the shade is closing. Last and final thing that I want to point out about our new F-150 that's slightly annoying is, for some reason, the front of this truck is absolutely a bug magnet. And I'm not sure if it's just because it's a solid surface, and maybe on our other, on the F350 or any other vehicle I've had that has a front grille, maybe the bugs actually make their way or get pushed around some of those grille pieces and back in towards the radiator, and you don't notice it so much. But take a look at the front of the truck here. It's like bugs smashed everywhere, even up on the hood. So I am constantly polishing these front headlights because they get bugs all over them, cleaning off the light bar because it gets bugs and guts all over it, and then the front grille section. These are the first places I always have to hit with cleaning soap when I'm washing the truck. So we do have several videos out about the Lightning already. One about my 156-mile daily work commute and how the Lightning does there. One about towing a pontoon boat for over an hour to the lake and then coming back. One about helping Mackenzie move into her new college apartment, towing the 6x12 enclosed trailer. So we've done some towing tests with it. We've done a long range test, and you're gonna see soon that I did a 1,000-mile trek across country with this truck. Not obviously the whole way across country, but a 1,000-mile road trip in the truck. How much it cost, how it performed, how often I had to stop and charge. You're gonna see that all in an upcoming video. So there's a lot of things I really like about the Lightning, but today was definitely a bummer. You think when you get a new truck, or even if it's, in our case, used but 1 year old, take it in for a state inspection, typically it's gonna need nothing. I mean, the F350 hasn't really needed anything, and it's got 40-some thousand miles on it. Now it does need the regular oil changes and stuff, so I thought that's one of the places I'm gonna save money is when I take it in to get service work done. I don't need those things done. But again, had never considered that I have to spend $408 on a truck that's still completely covered under the bumper-to-bumper warranty. But of course that doesn't include wear items. Brakes are a wear item, even if they're not worn down. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative and entertaining, please give us a thumbs up. Leave those comments down below. Those of you who are Lightning owners, have you had this same brake rotor issue where for underuse they've needed replaced? And then anybody who's an F150 owner, do you have the same issue with your tailgate, with your glove box, and even with the front grille? Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the support. We'll see you again the next time.